First of all, I had a hard time choosing a name for this episode since there were a couple of things that I wanted to tackle. No, in all honesty, this is something that I was teasing with for a couple of years. Yet I always got overwhelmed because I lacked the skills, tools, materials in order for me to be able to complete this build. And why didn't I just went ahead and bought some of those pre-built buckle booths that you can find out there? Well, that is because of... And also because if I end up doing a buckle booth the right way, this is not my flat. And once I leave, I will end up throwing away literally around 2Ks straight into the trash. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I bet that I can build my own buckle booth with recycled materials. And in about less than a year, here we are. I have nothing inside of me, just an empty lifeless void. You gave nothing, just I'm still here, it is gone from this whole war. In the night I can see our face. Before I start with the montage of how everything was built, if you clicked on this video because you are in the same situation that I was, not being able or not wanting to spend 2,000 plus euros or dollars on a buckle booth, I'm going to point out what would I have done differently if I had a time machine. Number one and most important,
plan everything.
Plan even the smallest of details. I'm an anxious person and I have ADD. I've also have a bit of overactive imagination syndrome.
I'm disabled.
One thing that is very complicated and hard for me to do and accomplish is to create simple, structured, functional plans. And that, my friend, results in a fuck it mentality. Yet, it's not a bad fuck it. It's more of a, all odds are against me, I have absolutely not a single fucking idea on how I'm going to do this. Yet, here I go. Now, if well managed, it can be rocket fuel. Yet, if you abuse your daily fuck it quota, it's a bread for today, hunger for tomorrow type of situation. You can look at this as life's duct tape. And once again, if you abuse your quota, it will definitely come and bite you. So, manage your fuckets and plan ahead as much as possible. You will fail. You will fail again and again and again and again, because obviously this is the first time that you do this, and that's completely fine. So don't get discouraged. And also know that this will not result in a super professional buckle booth that you can find on, let's say, a dedicated professional recording studio. I think I did a pretty good job managing my expectations, because honestly, the only thing that I wanted out of this project was to create a space where I was able to do voiceovers, record death metal buckles at 5 a.m. in the morning without waking up my neighbors or wife. So all I wanted to do was to create a dead space to eliminate all echo and reverberation and anything that would end up fucking up a take. So all I wanted was a dry, dead space that could contain sound as much as possible. I definitely knew that I was not going to be able to achieve a soundproof buckle booth, because if I was going to do that, I would have need to actually invest a lot more money. So I think I did okay with this part. So once again, as long as I can record buckles, do voiceovers at 5 a.m. in the morning without waking up my wife or neighbors. So having that in mind and knowing that I completely abused my fucking quota, please keep in mind that by any means I'm not a construction specialist, and obviously I'm not an acoustics engineer. So right before we start, know that anyway, is this a tutorial? This is not a tutorial. This is just me showing you how I created a buckle booth using mostly recycled materials. And actually, if I was going to name this far from a tutorial, I would have named this a cautionary tale. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love how everything turned out. It works exactly as I planned, as I wanted. Yet, the devil is in the details, and those details are named
Plans.
And since no plans were made whatsoever, I had made a render by a very professional architect, so you can have an idea of what I was aiming for.
Around 85% of the materials used in this structure were salvaged and recovered literally from the dumpster. Here where I live, Tuesday is the day where you would throw away big bulky things like furniture and wood and so on. So every Tuesday I would just go out and hunt for materials. And I was extremely lucky, I must say.
So yeah, to have an idea of what I was mentioning about recycling everything, these are obviously like some cabinets wood or some shit that I recycled, and I placed them on the wall. This is actually the only piece of wood that I bought. The floor is another OSB plate that I also found. I think this is going to be the door. The great thing that I wasn't counting on is that basically I cut this like in an angle because the plate or that OSB plank was like this big, yet it was like all up here. So I had to get rid of that chunk, and now I'm going to have to place one of these studs here. So let's do that. Let's cut this motherfucker.
So once again, what you would normally want to do if you're planning on building a soundproof room or a booth is the concept of doing a room within a room. To sum it all up, the idea is to make a structure or a wall structure insulation wall sandwich for all surfaces. I wasn't very interested in doing that, since the main idea was to spend as little as possible in order to create a dead room. So on my main plans I got rid of one of the walls, the interior walls. And I used what would be the internal insulation material as the sound absorption panels, and leaving only one sheet of OSB, wood, plaster, or whatever I would scavenge on my dumpsters expedition as the main wall. So in conclusion, the main idea was to have floor and then rug, walls absorption, ceiling absorption, door absorption, and that's it.
So what I did so far after cutting all of those studs, which I'm going to use to build the frames, obviously I cut them to the height of this thingy. So now what I did was I placed one, I basically drilled this one, it's pretty sturdy, to this wall. So, you know, I like to do things the hard way. So instead of doing the fucking frame and then installing the frame, I'm just building it as I go. But anyways, this is what is going to hold the door. What I'm going to do right now is to proceed to add the other frame, and let's see how it goes.
Destiny favors those who fight to claim their freedom, because in time we will not bow before the Kremlin demons. Barbarian Brazilians, the blood of our people. Fight the silent demon. Kills are raining left to right, on cities turn to ruins. Heroes rise, defiant the earth against a swarming foe. So these words are easy just a number and a power. They never thought they'll ever be. We stand to die our honor.
So far I think I'm almost done with the structure. The only thing that's missing is that I want to add this beam here to this other beam, and then another beam here, so that everything is sturdy enough. Once again, if you are a builder, I am very sorry that your eyes have to see this, because this is I mean, for someone who doesn't know shit about construction, I think I'm doing pretty good, but still. The whole idea of this thing was not to waste money on materials, and actually everything that you see there, absolutely everything in the structure, all of that I paid in zero. I found everything on the street, so That's a win-win situation for me.
And there he is, cutting what he planned to be the door. Yet.
It failed miserably.
Good news is that not all is lost, and this failed door attempt ended up being the ceiling. So what I ended up doing was cutting the failed door to size. Funny enough, it fitted almost perfectly. So I added the failed door to be my new ceiling, and I joined both pieces with glue and this metal joiner thingy. I'm not sure what the name of this thing is. Now I'm going to take care of the walls. Since one of the OSB planks I rescued had cement all over it, I had to go and clean that thing with the help of a chisel and an orbital sander, which I basically bought for this project. And I think it was definitely something that I didn't need for this project, but it's cool because now I have an orbital sander that I can use for future projects, so hooray for wasting money.
Okay, so far this is like day 4 or something like that. So now what I'm going to do is to start putting up the walls. And the only thing that I would need to do is cut them so that the second OSB fits there and then the other piece fits on this area. So end of day, I don't know, 4, 5, 3, I don't know. Yep, this wall is cut and done. All of the screws are in place. This little cap that kinds of annoys me, but I'll see how I deal with this.
So yep, that annoying gap robbed me of my sleep that night. So next day I took care of that wall with some wood sealer, sealant, whatever the name is of that freaking thing. And I will regret this. 2 months later and I'm still cleaning sawdust because of this stupid action. And if I had planned ahead and measured things properly, this would have not happened. So once again, plan ahead. So remember kids, be like a Christian pastor. Do as I say, not as I do. After the walls were screwed into place, I started adding the absorption material. These are some absorption panels made with recycled textile fabric.
It's not perfect. On top here has a little bit of thingies that will be disguised or hidden by the ceiling.
Now it's time for the rug. For this I just got a cheap, dense and thick rug that I could fit inside my 1 by 1 meters booth. I just simply added a fixed small table to fit a keyboard and a mouse. And then, to keep reflecting surfaces at a minimum, I attach a piece of rock leftover, leaving a small gap so the absorption panel could fit. Now it was time to add the panels on the front wall. But first I needed to add the small monitor, AC cables, HDMI cables and the XLR cable through the very professional duct that I made on the wall.
I've actually placed the cables from this end. I left this little space here, or cut this opening here, because this is where the mouse is going to be, and obviously this is where the keyboard will fit. And so far with the cables I just place them behind the absorption panels so that they are, just hidden there. So here's another tricky part. I was thinking of hiding, or how to hide the microphone cable, but I don't think I'm going to completely hide it, so that at the end this is the only part that is going to stick out. I really don't care about the cable showing, fuck aesthetics. I just want something practical, just in case if I end up putting a cabinet here. It's not a pain in the butt to just take the cable outside of this space.
Since I had no more space on the small desk, I made a separate stand or mount for the headphones mixer.
So I just bought these beams that are going to be the door.
So, after the door skeleton was constructed, I bought a few thin plywood sheets in order to cover the doors. And a friend visited while I was doing this, so obviously, abusing our friendship, I made him help me with the false promise of cold beers. Nah, when a promise is made on beer, that promise is to be kept.
This is the door. It's already in place. Even though when it's crooked and much less than perfect, and I have that hole there that I need to take care of. I'm actually surprised that I didn't have such a hard time putting this thing up, honestly. I thought this was going to be like my worst nightmare, but yeah, there it is.
So, of course I didn't add door handles while I was building the door. No, that was way too logic and easy. And I ended up doing one from scratch for the external side of the door. It ended up looking pretty good, so I went and created a vase so the handle had more surface to be glued on. And it worked. Yet, I must have been working under the influence, because that fucking thing ended up being crooked as hell, and it still fucking annoys me. And after failing in more than 4 different occasions, for the inner side of the door I just went ahead and bought a door handle, because you know that's what you would normally do, you fuckface. But let me tell you something, that was frustrating as fucking hell. Now all the cables were added and hidden behind the absorption panels of the front wall, and now it was time to add the fabric. In this case, I wanted to add something that wasn't as see-through as the other fabric that I initially bought, which actually is more of a micro mesh, which is perfect for the job. And since at that point I ran out of that micro mesh, I went and bought another type of fabric. The thing is that the one that I brought to the store as a sample was very thin and see-through, which is exactly what you want. Now, on the fabrics store, they had the same type of fabric, yet a bit more dense. And at first I was a bit worried that specific fabric would reflect some of the high frequencies, but honestly, that was not the case, luckily. Now for this part, this is basically what I tried to hide as many of the imperfections so that this doesn't end up looking ugly. So what I did was to add a few skirting boards, which I also found on my dumpster expeditions. I sanded and painted them so I could add them to the door's frame. This is the only part that I'm still working on, since I'm planning on adding absorption panels to that exterior side as well as the wall next to the door. And guess what? All of the off-voice clips that you have heard until now have been recorded inside the booth using a trusty SM57 straight into my Behringer UMC 1820.
And guess what? Only around 190 euros are theoretically going to be lost, since that is the sum of all of the materials, wood, paint, panels, and everything that I'm going to end up throwing away once I leave this place. Yet the rest is cables, equipment, and stuff that I'm going to be able to keep on using again and again. So would I do this all over again on a new place? Yeah, I had a lot of fun building this, even though just like I mentioned, I had all of those moments of frustration and anger and whatnot. But I learned a lot building this thing. Would I make things different next time? Bet your ass, yes. Next time I'm just going to end up saving enough money so I can create a buckle booth the proper way. And that would obviously discard the idea of creating a booth with recycled materials, which in this case and in this video is the main point. To spend as little as possible being able to create a functional buckle booth that is going to cost you less than a fraction of what a real soundproof space would end up costing. And once again, I had a lot of fun, and I think this was a pretty interesting experiment or project that actually gave me a lot of experience and a lot of insight of what actually would be to create a proper buckle booth. I know that this was a very long video, and believe me, it took me a lot of time to piece this whole thing together. So if you made it this far, Thank you so freaking much. And it would mean the world to me if you can like this video and subscribe to the channel. And trust me, I think you're gonna have a fun ride. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you have an amazing weekend full of great headbanging music, great beers, better friends, headbang like there's no tomorrow, and while you're at it,
Break your neck.